sheets, and we will definitely be out of here by 3. This is not a...
You're going to 3 hours on net sheets?
No.
2
2
hours.
Oh.
Good thing you were here to do net sheets.
Yeah, right?
So like I say, we'll definitely,
You know, there's math involved here.
we can cover this in 2 hours with no problem. Hopefully. So, let's get rolling. By the way, I'm going to use, just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to use the estimated seller's proceeds net sheet form in the MLS. But, matter of fact, we should start doing this. We won't do it today, so nobody has to get nervous. But we have an old box of just blank handwritten type net sheets, which is how we used to do this in the old days. And I was just talking to the agents in Claremont, and I said the following statement, which I believe is true, but it's pathetically sad. I bet 70% of the agents that work in this office don't know how to fill out a net sheet, or don't fill out a net sheet at all. So in a listing appointment, in other words, and you don't tell the seller what they're going to net, and you rely upon Summer, your escrow officer, to do it. I got to tell you right now, when I get some giggles in the back, that is NG. Okay, and if you don't know me that well, NG is no good. Okay, now nothing wrong with having Summer do an estimated proceeds and give it to your seller at multiple points during a transaction. But when you are out on a listing appointment, what are you gonna do? You're gonna call Summer and say, "Hey, Summer, it's Saturday afternoon. I'm taking Mr. and Mrs. Jones's listing. Could you work me up a net sheet?" I don't think that's gonna work so well. And giving a seller a net sheet after the listing, I don't think that's working so well either. So, bottom line is, using the escrow officer to do a net sheet for you is fine, but that can't be the end product. Okay, you need not only to be able to do it yourself, and to be honest with you, the WIN forms or the ZIP forms form does make it pretty easy for you. But I would suggest you also need to be able to do it longhand. Fill it out by hand, know what you need to fill out, know how to do the calculations, all of that. Oops, all that good stuff. So, without any further ado, let's do this. So, by the way, who's used? I mean, we got a couple people already have their license and done a couple deals. Does anybody use the one in WIN forms, or are you using something different? You use the WIN forms one? Okay. All right, well, that makes sense. Okay, I'm just going to pull up Thingwood here. There may be some information already in here. Okay, the form that we're going to use, if you do go to WIN forms, I believe is called the estimated seller's proceeds.
Yep.
Estimated seller's proceeds. It looks like that'll work for us. We call it the net sheet class. Net sheet is, I guess, old school for what is the seller going to net on the sale of their property. Normally there's 2 things that sellers want, and by the way, believe it or not, matter of fact, Drew and I just took a listing on Monday, and a lot of times what's more important, which makes no sense whatsoever, what's more important to the seller is what are they going to sell their house for. Okay? So when you're going on a listing appointment, it's all about price, 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 price. You may be surprised after you fill out a net sheet that they actually are netting more money than they thought they were going to net, and therefore price maybe isn't quite as important, or it might be the exact opposite. You may run into a situation where, gosh, if I could only get $200,000, I'd be fine, but they haven't calculated the cost properly, and then you give them a net sheet at a $200,000 sales price, and like, oh, well, that doesn't work, I need $210,000. So, at any rate, let's start running through this. We'll throw down a whole bunch. Actually, I'm going to do multiple examples here. Let me open up a couple other forms while we're at it. Let me open up the RPA. We didn't want that one. And we'll make reference to the... And we're probably going to need a copy of the prelim too, but let's start with this. Okay, So, here we go. We've got, now, this is the scenario. I am at your house. We are at your dining room table. I am doing a listing presentation, okay? You guys are the sellers. We have a family of 10 people that are selling their house. Normally, at some point, the presentation kind of has a flow. Hey, this is what we're gonna do. This is how we market the property. This is what they, you wanna hit that one too? Might help a little bit more, that middle one's. And are we ready to list? Or we've got a price? And this net sheet may be kind of the final close, okay? Where we've agreed that we think we need to be at a sales price, let's just for giggles, say we think we're gonna have a proposed sales price or list price of $250,000. Okay? Well, I'll tell you what, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, let's figure out what that's gonna net you. You know, if we did sell it for $250,000, let's put the cost on the sheet. So now we're going through it. We've got, obviously, this should not be Coldwell Banker Town and Country. This came off of a lease or something like that. So needless to say, not a bad idea to have your clients' names in here. Also not a bad idea to have them actually sign the net sheet, okay? You're telling them, yeah, I know it's a typo, I got it. You're telling them that, hey, this is what you're gonna get. And sometimes John and Sally aren't on the same page, okay? Maybe there's a divorce going on, maybe there's something else going on, get him to execute it. We have a transaction which I hope we're gonna close in the next couple weeks. Or next couple days, we have a husband and a wife who are somewhat separated, not because of a divorce, but because of some health issues. And the wife's family is somewhat involved in this. We're selling this property, we've agreed on price, we've agreed on terms. They know what the bottom line net's gonna be, but what they don't know is how it's going to be split. The husband is expecting X amount of money. The wife's family is expecting X amount of money. Guess what? That has not been resolved.
Yeah, it does. But
It wasn't resolved at the time we signed the contract.
I told you he was on very good.
It wasn't resolved at the time we signed the contract,
well, that's true.
okay? So, now everything else was resolved, but anyway, getting these numbers in place, and by the way, if it's just your traditional Mr. and Mrs. Smith selling a house, when escrow closes, who is going to get that money? Mr. and Mrs. Smith, okay? Unless they agree on specific instructions. Mr. Smith gets X, Mrs. Smith gets Y, and they could do that, but they have to agree to it. Okay, so we got our buyers, or excuse me, our seller's name up here. Today's, what is today, May 22, 2001. We got our address. Okay, now, when you're working net sheets, you may do a net sheet based upon multiple things, and you may do multiple net sheets at the same listing presentation. You may do a net sheet based upon a cash deal. If we're going to sell this offer property cash, the cost will be one thing. If we're going to sell this property using FHA or VA or conventional, it could be something different. It could be the same. You might say, wait a minute, why are the costs different? Well, when we go down through the sheet, you'll see certain types of financing may create different types of costs for the buyer or for the seller and what they're going to pay. So for now, let's just say it's cash, but we will pretend as if as we go through this, well, what if it was FHA? Well, we put a fee in here. Well, what if it was VA? Well, we put a fee in here. What if it's in an association, which really has nothing to do with the type of financing? Okay, projected closing date, very important, okay? Very important. So let's, for now, again, I don't want to rehash the contract class, but when we were in the contract class, one of the things that we discussed in the contract class was, let's not guess on when we're going to close escrow. Let's give it some thought, okay? Let's just get a calendar in front of us right now. Let's pretend we're going into escrow today, and the buyer wants to do a 30 or a 45-day escrow. Well, today's May 22nd. Actually, let me get a different calendar in front of me, because we're going to refer back and forth to a calendar more than once. So let's up here real quick. Okay, the calendar we're going to be looking at, I just want to have a couple, 3 months in front of me at the same time. And there we go. Okay, so here's our calendar. We've got May 22nd. Okay, so approximately 30 days from now is gonna be May 22nd, Sunday. Well, that doesn't work. Well, what if we were doing a 45-day escrow? Well, okay, that would put us into somewhere around July 7th, which is a terrible day to close escrow. That's the Monday after the 4th of July weekend. Matter of fact, is that a holiday? Or the 4th is the real holiday? So what, is Monday back to work day?
Yes.
Even if it is a back to work day, the worst possible day, not the worst, but one of 10 possible work days you could possibly consider closing escrow. Because you've got a 3-day holiday, bunch of people taking off here, and quite honestly, probably a bunch of people taking off here, just because they're recovering from the weekend. So, but whatever date you choose, it is important, because close of escrow dates have an impact on closing costs. Okay? They have an impact on closing costs. So let's just, for now, with no real serious regard for holidays or anything like that, let's just say we've looked at the calendar, we're gonna close in June. We're, a 30-day would put us here. I hate closing on the last day of the month. I don't like closing on Mondays. I don't like closing on Fridays. So we've had some discussion between the buyer and the seller and the agent, and we've all agreed that we're gonna try to close it. We're gonna close escrow, scratch the word try, on June 25th. Okay, so June 25th it is. And again, we'll discover why that's important. Which, by the way, if we don't close on June 25th, does it change some of these costs? Yes, absolutely. Okay, so June 25th is what we're looking for. Now, I'm asking my seller, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what are your property taxes? Now, normally, if I'm doing my job, I should already know the answer to that. I've got realist tax with me, or I've got a property profile, and it says that the property taxes on this property are $2,800. But I ask anyway. Number one, it's almost like a little test. First of all, who answers? Debbie answers the question. Debbie's the one who pays the bill. Debbie's the one who's kind of got that stuff. Sometimes you'll be sitting back with a husband and wife and, I don't know, she takes care of all that. I don't know what you're talking about. How much is your mortgage? I don't know. How much you own the house? I don't know. Are the taxes impounded? I don't know. Insurance? I don't know. Okay, hopefully one of them know. So if Debbie volunteers, and again, that's something, okay, that's interesting. You very well may make this. I've got one of my very best friends. I grew up with him. When it comes to this sort of stuff, his wife does all of it. He's not capable of handling any of this. So he literally, I could just see him in a listing presentation, and it would be whatever she says. Literally. She knows what's going on, whatever she says. If 250 is good for her, then she knows best. And he honestly, I don't even think he would care what the bottom line number was. If she says $50,000 is what we can do, $50,000 is what we can do. So anyway, we do want to know what the taxes are. So let's suppose we've looked at the profile, we've got some confirmation from the seller, and the seller says yes, our taxes are $2,880 a month. And then I'm also going to say, okay, well, and have you paid them? Taxes are due when? December 10th, April 10th. Okay? The December 10th tax due date pays it to the future. Okay, when you pay property taxes, you're paying in advance. When you pay mortgage payment, you pay in the arrears. We'll talk about that a little bit more. So when you pay your December 10th, 2014, 13 taxes, you're paying for the first 6 months of 2014. When you pay your April 10th taxes, you're paying for the last 6 months of 2014. Okay, so you're paying your taxes in advance. So if the taxes have been paid, great. Then that's going to impact. What's going to happen in this particular case? First person answers this gets a $50 gift card. What's going to happen? Is the seller going to get money back?
Yes,
How much?
it's prorated.
How many days?
No, we're in the month of June.
How many
We're
days?
in June.
How many? Debbie said, is the seller going to get money? The taxes have been paid.
No.
For the whole.
Wait a minute. Let's
they
put the
have.
question out. The taxes have been paid. Is the seller going to get money back? Debbie said yes. If the answer is yes, how many days or how much? And I don't forget about the dollar amount. How many days back is she going to get? You got 5 seconds.
35 days.
It would be for the
Five.
remainder
Too
of the
late.
year, wouldn't it?
5.
Why come you didn't answer that just 5 seconds ago? You would have won the gift card. You knew the answer, what are you hesitating for? The property taxes that she paid, half of the 2880 covers the first 6 months of 2014. January, February, March, April, May, June. We close on June 25th, she paid till June 30th, right? She gets 5-day credit back on whatever that is, you can do the math, okay?
5 days,
Yeah.
Got it? Yeah. Come on, girl, a little confidence there. You know the answer, go for it. Okay, so again, but again, she also may have lied to me. She may have said I paid the taxes and she hadn't. And a lot of times people think they have paid the taxes and they haven't. Or I don't know, I think it comes out in my mortgage payment, I don't know. Well, it's important to know, because that could be, by the way, 6 months is half of that. So now we have a $1,440 unknown. I don't know if I paid. And by the way, just pulling up a property profile, or pulling up realist tax, you can't depend upon whether that says, you need a physical prelim from a title company that says paid or unpaid. And sometimes you can't even trust that. Sometimes on the prelim, it'll say unpaid. It's never wrong if it says paid. It'll say unpaid, but the seller says, nonsense, I have the receipt that I paid it. Okay, let's find out. He only did it 30 days ago. Maybe that prelim needs to get updated.
Okay,
So,
I'm a tad confused.
Okay.
Because she would have, it's $28.80 per year?
For the year. So the first half would have been $1,440. That would have been
Okay,
paid on.
and then in April, she would have paid for the last 6 months
If the
of
sell,
the year.
I was going under the premise that you pay your December 10th first half. If you also paid your April 10th second half, you're right, because I've got
Okay.
what month we're in. If you would have paid your April 10th second half, Anna's answer is wrong, your answer is yes. Now how much money, how many days would you have gotten back? 5 seconds.
6 months, 5 days.
There you go. 6 months and 5 days, 185 days. So Debbie would have gotten back, or you guys would have gotten back $1,440 plus another probably $50 or whatever it happens to be for property taxes. And again, it may not sound like that big of a deal, but I gotta tell you, and I'm not exaggerating, we're gonna come down to a number here, okay? Down at the bottom. We're gonna have an estimated seller, right now the seller's getting 250 grand. Let's just suppose that number is 32,575 bucks. Yes, that's what I need, 32,572 bucks. You're gonna close escrow, you're gonna give them a check for $32,500. You missed it by 72 bucks. You will have a seller who will say,
Give me
where's my 72
$72
bucks? Okay? And they mean it. Okay? Now, when you're in a short sale situation, which we don't have as many of those before, but you're in a lot of these situations, sometimes whatever the deficit is, and again, 72 bucks, we could probably live with that. I'd say, okay, Debbie, here's 72 bucks, I'm really sorry. But what if it was 4,000 bucks? Because we can very easily make a $4,000 mistake. Easily. Well, whatever our commission number is going to be in here, and by the way, we got a lot of new people in the class. When I didn't say if, when you make a mistake, you will make a mistake in these transactions. You will come to me, and I will help you. Okay, I will defend you. I will call the other brokers for you. I will call agents for you. I will do everything I can to help you through that situation. However, if your mistake cost your client money, after we smooth over the damage and we apologize, I will say, oh, and by the way, don't worry. He's going to come right out of his commission. I'm not going to argue with a seller to say, no, we're not going to credit you $4,000. I know he made a mistake. But it says down here, estimated. You know, I'm not gonna do that. You know, we're in business for more than one deal. You know, and sometimes we do deals for free, and sometimes we do deals for free at the absolute worst possible time in our personal lives. Meaning, we really needed that $4 grand because I'm 3 months behind on my car payment, and I got a 3-day notice on my door. And my wife has said if I don't make some money this month, I'm going to have to get out of the business. And you know what, that doesn't matter. You screwed up, you made a $4,000 mistake, you're gonna have to pay the $4,000. Just that simple. So, anyway, so here we are. So let me get this mouse out of the way here a little bit. So we got our property taxes. You could put the rate in here, the proper, but be careful with this. I don't like this. If you come in here, I never do this, by the way. Matter of fact, I don't even know what this is gonna do. Okay, you have a property tax rate. This is, in the old days, this was safe. Property taxes are 1.25% of the sales price. You gotta remember, the property taxes have nothing to do with this sales price. They have to do with what the people bought it for 5 years ago, okay? But again, today, there's so many special assessments and so many add-ons and so many stuff. I never would recommend you put any sort of rate in there whatsoever. You are asking for danger, danger, danger. Let's get the real number, and let's plug it in there, and let's get anything to do with the rate, okay? Now, the way this thing works, if I'm not, yeah, I don't really particularly care the way this thing, I'm not gonna do this, I'm gonna start going down here, so I'm gonna get my mouse back here. Well, actually, no, I'm not gonna do that first. Let's go ahead and talk about, okay, let's just stick with the form. Is the property in a homeowners association, Mr. and Mrs. Seller? No, let's pretend it is, just for illustration's sake. Yes, it is. How much are the dues?
$250 a month.
$250 a month. Thank you very much for participating. Okay, now, homeowners association dues. Today is May 22nd. Have you guys made your May homeowners association dues payment?
Oh, no, ask the wife.
No,
No, we haven't. Okay. When are we going to close escrow?
June.
June 25th.
June 25th. Okay, so right now, homeowners association dues are actually paid in advance, like rent on a house. When you pay your rent, you pay your June rent on June 1st, and that covers the month of June. You haven't lived there yet. I'm paying you in advance so I get to stay in your house. Homeowners association dues and taxes are the same way. You pay in advance. So if I haven't made my May payment, and I'm going to close in theory on June 25th, how many days of homeowners association dues are we going to be charged for?
if you haven't made your payment,
55
If you
days.
haven't made 55 days. You haven't made the May payment, so we owe all of May. We're going to close 25 days into the month of June. 30, by the way, everything's prorated on a 30-day month. I don't care if there's 31 days in the month or 28 days in the month. In our world, every month has 30 days in it, okay? So we owe 55 days, so I'm going to jump down here. Homeowners Association dues, 55 days. It takes the $250, it divides it by 30, and multiplies it by 55. You now are going to be charged at close of escrow $458. Got it? Okay. Now let's pretend Debbie says, oh yeah, but we're a little anal on the bills and we've actually paid for the entire year in advance. Do people do that?
yes.
Yeah, sure they do. Okay, well in that case, you don't owe for May and you won't owe for the 25 days in June, so let's get rid of that. So then over here, we get to say estimated credits, right? We've already paid for the whole year through December 31st. We're going to close when?
June
June 25th. How many days do we need to put in here?
185.
185. 6 months plus the 5 days. So now, 185 days. That amount of money that the seller has already paid in advance will be credited back to them at close of escrow. Now that can be a little tricky. Okay? Let me tell you why that can be tricky. Because, first of all, when sellers get credit, who gets debited? The new buyer. The new buyer. What if the new buyer's like, wait a minute, I'm not like you guys. I don't pay my bills 6 months in advance. Who the hell does that? I pay the day it's due, right? So, in this particular case, this money has to come in one of two places, and both of them might be difficult. The one place would be the new buyer. It says, hey, Mr. Oscar, you're our new buyer. The seller's actually paid the dues till the end of the year. If you're comfortable with that and you agree to that, do you have the available funds to put an extra $1,542 into escrow to credit the seller. Oscar says, no, I barely have enough money for down payment, closing costs as it is. Where else do we go then? Where else is the seller gonna get this money? No, lender's not gonna do it.
Agent.
Who?
The homeowners
The homeowners association.
Um,
Now we gotta go to Lakeview Sunamine Homeowners Association and say, got a little quirky thing here. These people paid their money in advance. You guys have the money. We're selling it. The new buyer doesn't have the ability to front it. Then we gotta get them, would you please refund this particular owner back that money? Could that be a problem?
Yes.
It could be a very big problem, okay? But putting it aside, if you guys as the owner did pay your association dues in advance, then you would be entitled to 185 days on a $1,500 credit, all right? Now again, that's very unusual, so I'm gonna take that example out, and I'm gonna go back to what is the common example, which is the one we just did. Homeowners association dues, 55 days. Or again, and by the way, this is where the listing presentation is also an interview process, and sometimes people lie, especially when it comes to uncomfortable. I'm a little bit behind, you know.
3 years.
3 years, okay.
That's
I'm three-
foreclosed.
Okay, but again, it's
10.
important. 3 years, 360 and 360 is 720, and 360 is 1080. You now owe $9,000 in back dues plus
For interest, right? And late fees.
HOA probably,
Evicted a long time ago.
well, not on HOA dues, you'd be surprised. HOA collection fees / attorney fees / whatever. And again, we don't, what is it? Now the reality, this is where sometimes you have to have the hard conversation. Okay, I finally got you out 3 years. That's $9,000. Give me the letter you have from the attorney. Give me the letter you have from the association, because I can guarantee you it's not going to be that. It's going to be, right? And then of course, what does the seller say? Well, can we negotiate that? Is that a negotiable item?
Well, once they do your selling it, it's gonna be hard to negotiate.
Could be. It is a negotiable item, but it's not a negotiable item necessarily between buyer and seller, although it could be. But at any rate, just know what you're dealing with. These little things will cause, and by the way, let's suppose it wasn't disclosed, and let's suppose it wasn't quite that much, but let's suppose it was, a little over a year. And let's suppose the net down here is super, super skinny. And let's suppose you didn't ask the question, and the way you found out that you've got $3,300 in back dues, oh, and by the way, that's not the real problem, because when you get that far behind, then you probably got $2,500 in attorneys and collection fees. So now we've got a seller that owes almost $6,000. And, oh, and by the way, we did a really good job on our commission. And we got $7,500 on the list side. Well, $5,000 of that's gonna have to go pay this off because we can't get the deal done without it. And you never even asked the question. Okay? By the way, with most of my classes, even though it says net sheet, we talk a lot more stuff than just what's going on in the net sheet. We're trying to keep some money in your guys' pocket. Okay, so here we are. Let's go back up here. We determined that we do have an association. We've determined, let's be reasonable, that we've got 55 days of dues to be paid, which, by the way, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I recommend, today's May 22nd, I recommend you actually pay the May, and while you're at it, why don't you go ahead and pay the June? Avoid the late fees. Now, you may say, no, I'm not going to pay, but if I say, hey, are you going to pay it, and you say, yes, you're going to pay May? Yes. You're going to pay June? Yes. Then I go back up and I give them a 5-day credit, right? But then I also explain to them, as I explain a lot of other things on here, this is totally predicated on us closing on June 25th. If for some reason we close later, is it possible that we have the best plans to close on June 25th, but we don't close until July 25th?
Problem.
Problem. Robin attracts the crappiest escrows ever. This girl, everything, I'm gonna say this out loud and I'm gonna say it on tape. Don't ever bring an offer in on any of Robin's deals and don't ever accept an offer written by Robin.
Don't say
Because
that part.
She just attracts the crappiest clients in the world. It's unbelievable. Okay, don't forget all that. But what she said is absolutely correct. Is you've got, it's entirely possible and in some cases probable, but this is the deal. If it's probable that the escrow's not going to close on June 25th and you know that today, then you don't put a June 25th closing here. Let's suppose we need some paperwork back. The buyer says, I'm ready to close by June 25th, but maybe we've got, what do we have here? We got 10 sellers in the room, and we know Mohammed's going on vacation, and he's the difficult one. Okay? And we know he's going to be out of the country, and we know it's going to be a time. Well, you might want to put on there right now, June 25th, July 25th. Okay, but for now, that's what we got. So we got our HOA dues. Let's go over, let's come down and let's fill out a couple loan information. Okay, gang, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, how much do you owe on the property?
105.
$105,000. And do you know what the interest rate on that $105,000 loan is?
5.5.
5.5. By any chance, do you happen to have one of the statements from, well, who's the lender on that?
Chase.
Chase. Do you happen to have the most current statement from Chase? If so, may I have it? I will take it with me, I'll make a copy and give it back to you. Now, again, believe it or not, you get 50-50 answers on that. Oh yeah, sure, give me just a minute, and you know, they go pull it out of the file, and boom, there it is. At least 50% of the time, well,
Somewhere around.
I don't know. Who pays the bills? Well, I do, but I don't really keep, I think I went into the shredder, or I do it online. I don't have,
Chase draws it automatically from my account.
Chase draws it automatically. It is very nice to get a copy of the most recent statement. It'll tell you multiple things. Number one, it'll tell me what the loan amount is, which is very, by the way, does she owe 105?
No.
Of course not. You know, maybe it's 105,543, or maybe it's 109,543, or maybe it's, and again, maybe it's 100,543. All of those numbers change our bottom line dramatically. And even so, even if we do have a bank statement from Chase that says the loan amount is 100,543, that will be different on June 25th. Not much, but it will be different on June 25th. Okay? That also assumes you're making your payments. So let's suppose now she says 105, but she produces a bank statement that says, oh, actually, your payoff was 100,543. And guess what? It is 5.5% interest rate. Okay, do we have a second loan on the property?
No.
This is the participation point.
Home equity line of 45,000?
There we go. 45,000 home equity line, which is a HELOC. If you hear those words, you know what the interest rate is on your HELOC?
6.5?
6.5%. Normally those are adjustable, but we'll take that as well. So you've got, by the way, HELOC. Who knows what HELOC stands for?
Home equity.
Home equity line of credit. I remember I've been in the business for a long time. And so all of a sudden I hear a new acronym coming around out there. HELOC. Shit, man. I've been in the business a long time. I'm embarrassed to ask what the hell that means. I think that term had been around for 2 years before I actually had somebody tell me. I'm like, oh shit, home equity line of credit. Makes sense. At any rate, second trust deed, HELOC, home equity line of credit, 45. Now again, same conversation. Do you have a statement? Because of course the balance is not 45,000 even, and the interest rate probably is not 6.5%. So we want to know that sort of stuff, right? Fair enough. Do we have anything else? This is asking for secured line of credits, but we could put other things in there. Do you owe anybody else any money? Uncle Bob.
Well, if you're asking for secured lines of credit, what is that specifically?
It could be stuff that's secured against the property. You got a loan for a solar panel. You got a loan for a patio cover from, HFC who financed a small home improvement loan for 10 grand. Okay. You have a $10,000 loan for some home improvements, and then bonds, liens, etc. And then we did something stupid, and we went out and financed some solar panels, and that was $21,000, which is cheap depending upon what kind of solar panels you're getting. okay? Anyway, the bottom line is we want to make sure we get all of this information, we want to make sure we get it all as accurate as possible, and we need to ask the questions. Are they current? Are you having any trouble? Is anybody after you? Do you have any liens? I noticed a beautiful swimming pool in the backyard, but as I came up, I'm making this up as I go, I saw a little notice nailed to a fence post on the back, and it looked like somebody was filing a mechanic's lien. What the hell's that all about? Okay. Oh yeah, I'm fighting with the pool guy. Okay, what are you fighting over? About $45,000 in concrete work. Okay, has he filed a mechanic's lien? Yes, but I don't know it. But he filed a lien. Right? So you gotta deal with all that crap. Okay, so now we've got all of our encumbrances. We've got a quick little line of where we're at, $250. This is what they owe. They got $73,457 in equity as of this moment, based upon these fees. Now we get to come back over here for a moment. Okay, interest to pay off the first loan. Okay, now, this is loans, by the way, this is also where if you do say, wait a minute, I want to get my escrow officer involved, I want to get the lender involved, I get it, but this is a really nice net sheet. It figures it out for you. Okay, we're going to close when?
June
June 25th.
June 25th. Unlike property taxes and homeowners association dues that we just discussed, mortgage payments are paid in the arrears, meaning my May 1st mortgage payment that I paid on time covered April. Okay? Most homeowners, they don't get that. Okay? So when I say, is your mortgage payments current? You say yes. I'm like, okay, great. You understand that your May payment covered April. So you're going to, by the way, sometimes sellers will ask you this all the time. Well, should I make, we're going to close on the 25th, or let's suppose we were going to close on June 10th. Okay? Do you think I should make my payment? Because it's due on the 1st, but they don't charge me a late fee until the 15th. So should I make the payment?
Yes.
Yes. The answer to that question is always yes. I don't care if we're going to close on June 1st. They say, do I make my June 1st mortgage payment? I'm going to say yes, but I'm also going to say, let's have that conversation again on May 28th. Okay, assuming we do close on June 1st. Bottom line is you never, ever, ever tell your seller to not make a mortgage payment. Now, in the back of your mind, you might say, okay, that might be a call that I want to change here, but I'm going to change it. It's going to be a game day decision, and I'm going to make it a couple days before close of escrow. And we'll get into some examples of that. But, so this is the deal. Have you guys made your May payment?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I need you to make your June payment as well. We're closing on June 25th. You're going to make your June payment.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, just so you know, your June 1st payment covers May. You are still going to have how many days of interest?
25.
25 days of interest. So even though you've made your June payment, June covers April, we still owe 25 days of June. This does the math for you. 5.5% interest rate on a $100,000 loan calculates it out. 25 days of interest is $384. Very nice. It's calculated for you. Okay? Now, let's pretend you didn't have a calculator and you're doing this by hand. I'm pretty good at math, but when it comes to this stuff, more is less. More is better. Okay? I sit back and say, how much is your mortgage payment? How much is this payment? Somebody.
Which one?
The $100,000 payment, how much is this?
$1,200 a month?
No, not
On a
30.
30 year or 15?
Give me a number.
Let's
$500
say
bucks.
500.
It's $500. I put $500 in here. Wait a minute, Lance, it's only 20, I know.
Alright.
I'm padding a little bit. I'm going to put 1 month's payment in here. Okay, oh, and by the way, if you don't make your June payment, which you told me you're not, and I told you that's not right, you need to make it, then I'm going to put 2 months in here, and I'm also going to say, why do you want to hurt your credit? You're at least going to have a late fee, and you're potentially going to get a ding. You're going to get a 30-day ding. Don't do that. Make your payment. But this calculates it out for you. It's very nice. Secondary financing, same thing. You're going to make your payment, and I'm going to have the same amount of days. If you have 25 in column 1, you're going to have 25 in column 2. Okay? 25 days, $45,000 loan at 6.5% is $203. Got it? Pretty straightforward. Now again, homeowners associations are paid when? No, in advance. Mortgage payments are paid in the rears. No one wants to make the joke? No
I
one wants
love
to make
it.
in the rears joke? This will be the appropriate time. You only have one chance to make that joke. All right, fair enough. So mortgage payments are made in the rears, so you gotta make sure you've got that covered. Now again, on occasion, you will have people that will make mortgage payments in advance. You gotta be careful with that though, because depending upon how the bank applies them, sometimes they'll apply them to future payments and sometimes they'll apply them to principal. So they think they might have paid it. Well, no, well, you've made mortgage pay. That's why you thought you owed 105, but you only owe 100 because those advance payments you've made, the bank applied to principal. Bank of America, for example, I don't know if they just started doing this or not. I have a loan with Bank of America. For a long time, I would pay my mortgage payment 3, 4, 5 months in advance. And not because I'm good at that, it's just the opposite. I get lazy. You know, I'm like, I got a few extra bucks, let's just make the mortgage payment several months in advance, I don't have to worry about it. Well, guess what? Well, no, but about 6 months ago, they said, they won't, Bank of America, at least with me, they said, you are not allowed to make your mortgage payment in advance anymore. More than, I think, 2 months. I think I could pay June and maybe July, but if I tried to pay an August payment today, no, won't let you do it. Now they'll let me do it to principal, but if I basically kind of said, I'm going out of the country for 5 months, I want to pay 5 months in advance, they're like, well, let us introduce you to our online banking system. But they won't take payments in advance. So at any rate, but just stuff to keep in mind. Okay, interest on other lines of credit or financing. So is there interest in these? The reason they don't calculate it the same way over here is because secured lines of credits are a little bit goofy. The solar thing's a little bit goofy. It's not technically a mortgage in the sense of a mortgage where you get the payoffs. But you do want to know. So if you know what that's going to be, or is there a prepayment penalty on your solar? Or is there a prepayment penalty on your line of credit or on your first or your second? Prepayment penalties used to be kind of, for lack of a better word, very prevalent many years ago. Now they're almost non-existent. Can't even do them. Okay, but you could potentially do it maybe on this. We don't know what this is. It's not a traditional mortgage. Or we could maybe do it on that. I don't know. But for the most part, prepayment penalties really don't exist anymore on regular financing. And Cheryl's telling me it can't be done. So maybe they were legislated away. And this is not new. This has been around. I mean, they seem like they've been gone for 10 years. No? A while. A long time.
Since the subprime went away.
So, okay, so 7, 8 years. So you're not really going to have a whole heck of a lot of that. Now, I would not normally put the interest on these loans over here. What I would want to do is I would come over here and I would look at these 2 loans. And I would say, let's get the statement. Oh, by the way, I want you to get a payoff letter. Escrow will do this as well. But let's get a payoff on that 10 grand and that 20 grand. Let's get all the loans and the interest in the calculator. Then I would come back over here and I would just change it. Okay, well, it's $10,752, and it's actually, you didn't owe 21, it's $20,752, and you put it in there. Okay, through June 25th. Okay, prepayment, okay, demands. What is a demand fee? That's before we start, which by the way, you guys need to know this. Because if you use this, and by the way, not only do you need to know this, you need to know every word on this net sheet. What happens if I take this net sheet and I put it in front of my seller, and she says, Lance, what's a reconveyance fee? What's a demand fee? What's an exchange fee? What's drawing mean? You need to know these. And anything other than a legitimate answer is unacceptable. So, what is a demand fee?
Escrow demand?
Escrow demand, okay? Meaning what?
Asking for that payoff.
Okay, we demand a payoff amount from Chase and Citi and Uncle Bob and ABC Solar Company. Escrow company sends what is called a demand to the lenders, in this case 4 of them, And the demand says, we're going to pay this loan off through escrow proceeds. We believe we're going to close on June 25th. Would you please tell us how much they owe exactly to close on June 25th, but also give us a per diem of interest in case we close a little bit later or a little bit earlier. Okay, so you get a demand. So the escrow sends that over, and they get the information back, and they plug it in their net sheet. Has anybody ever tried to close an escrow, and the escrow company says, oh, we're waiting on an updated demand? Normally what that means is they've got a demand, but it's not up to date, because we thought we were going to close on June 25th. We're now closing on July 25th, and the escrow needs to make sure that they have the updated correct amount, because you can't close without it, right? So a demand fee is nothing more than asking these banks how much money is owed by the seller of the property. Okay, and they charge for that. I affectionately refer to these as garbage fees. So Chase will charge something to tell the escrow company this is what you owe. Sometimes it's 25, 30 bucks. Sometimes it's 75 bucks. I don't know if that's been regulated anymore, but I've seen them anywhere from 25 bucks to 150 bucks for a demand. And they also do a reconveyance. What's a reconveyance?
Transfer fee?
5 seconds. $50 gift card.
You get it from the title company?
Private property payment.
For the,
Changing
yeah.
it to, from one to
Nah.
the other.
Ding! Okay.
That's totally
Did you take your test, by the way?
No, Tuesday.
This might be on the test,
Yeah.
actually. The recon fee, or the reconveyance? Okay, let's try something here.
So do you already know the answer?
Of
No.
course.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yeah, I do.
Look at you. As she sits here and goes, look at all these agents that are so stupid, they don't know what that is.
Okay. Okay, here we've got a Google image of a deed of trust. Terrible quality, but deed of trust nonetheless. When you get a loan from Chase for 100,000 bucks, whatever it happens to be, what do you sign? You sign two things. You sign a note that says you guys owe Chase X amount of bucks, or Chase loaned you X amount of bucks, and you agree to pay it back under the following terms and conditions, right? And this note is secured by a deed of trust, which is attached to the property. Stuff might be on test. Okay? So we got a note that says we owe Chase money, secured by the deed of trust, which is attached to the property. The deed of trust outlines the basic terms and conditions of the note, which, by the way, is also referred to as loan documents. When buyers are signing loan documents, a chunk of that loan document, that is the note. This is what we agree to pay. Okay? So you sign the deed of trust. Now it's time to pay that deed of trust and that note off 5 years later. Right? On the back of the note, back up here, on the back of this note, let's see if this gives us what we want. There we go. This looks pretty. I can't read this to save my life. But normally on the back of the note, there's a little thing that says full reconveyance or partial reconveyance, 99.9999% of the time. It's what's called a full reconveyance.
That's that says deed of full reconveyance.
Okay. But it's normally on the back of the note. And when we
Right.
pay the $100,000, when we pay the $100,000, when we pay the $100,000 to Chase, right? Chase, believe it or not, Chase, somebody in their recon department says, oh, the people paid off their note. They go over and they pull some document out of a folder. A lot of this stuff has been digitized, but they pull it out of a folder and they sign the back and do a full reconveyance, signed by the executive at Chase, who's authorized to sign that. And it says, you guys no longer owe Chase the $100,000. And it has been reconveyed. Now, this is important. Not so much when it comes to dealing with big banks, but this is important when it comes to dealing with small private parties. I can pretty much assure you, if you get a loan through Chase or B of A or PHH or any of the big boys and you pay it off, they're gonna sign the reconveyance, it's gonna clear off title and everything's good. Let's pretend that this $10,000 over here was money that was loaned to you guys by Uncle Bob. Uncle Bob was a super nice guy, but he said, I'm a nice guy, but if I'm gonna loan you the 10 grand, you guys are gonna sign a deed of trust. Because I like you, but I don't like you that much. So you sign a deed of trust secured by what? Your house. You did that 10 years ago, right? 5 years ago, what did you do to Uncle Bob?
Paid them off.
You paid him off. What is Uncle Bob supposed to do to get rid of that $10,000 deed of trust on his property? He's supposed to fill out a reconveyance. Uncle Bob is not Chase. Uncle Bob doesn't do this every day. Uncle Bob knows that he got the money and he thanked you very much for it. But since he doesn't do this every day, and since you guys don't do this every day, nobody thought of having Uncle Bob sign what? The reconveyance. 6 months later, Uncle Bob does what? Dies. 5 years later, you're trying to sell. You have what's referred to as a cloud on title. It is now incumbent upon you to prove that you paid Uncle Bob.
He's dead now.
He's
Cares.
dead. Well, because
Can't
Uncle
pay
Bob
now.
may have an heir. Somebody may be entitled to that. This stuff happens a lot, okay? So, at any rate, a demand is a formal request to the lender that says how much money is required to pay off the loan. The reconveyance is, oh, by the way, when we do pay you off, how much are you going to charge us to sign and do the reconveyance? So normally, on a first trust deed, for both of these fees, the demand and reconveyance could be anywhere from $50 to $150. But we also have a second trust deed, and we also have Uncle Bob, and we also have the solar people. We have 4 loans. The reality is, anything I put in here is a guess. Okay? And I tell my client this. I don't know what they're going to charge, so I'm going to guess high. So I'm going to put in $500 here. $500? Are you kidding me? I'm telling you, I think I'm guessing, but I may be wrong. Because old solar people here, they may charge you $500 for a demand and income. Well, that's crazy, and how can they do that? I don't know. You're the one who borrowed the money from them, not me. Well, I know for a fact that that's against the law. Okay, well then get an attorney. Okay, that's not my job. All I know is that they could charge ridiculous fees, because I've seen it happen all the time. Now normally, you're only going to probably have 1 or 2 loans. And normally what I do is I just say about $100, $125 per loan. So if I have 1 loan, I put $125 in here. If I had 2 loans, I put $250. I've got 4 loans, so I'm putting 125 times 4. Right? That gives me $500. Okay. Other lender fees. Whose lender are we talking about here? The buyer's lender or your lender, the seller's lender?
Both.
Well, it could be both. It could be both, but in this particular area, this is under charges by existing lien holders. So this particular lending fee is talking about your lenders. Are they going to charge you other stuff? Happens? Yes. You need something quickly. Guys, the old days of title companies couriering shit around for us from here to Bakersfield on a moment's notice, not charging us, those days are gone. You need something quick, you're going to have a courier fee. My bank charges me $25 to send a wire. Well, the bank's not going to pay that. You know, you're going to pay that. Well, you might have 4 different wires. You could have $100 in wire fees over here. Okay? You need something done at the last minute. Something has to be couriered. We've got Uncle Muhammad over here who's a pain in the butt, and he's always traveling around. Okay? Well, we have to courier stuff to him 4 times at $100 a throw. So again, that type, and by the way, miscellaneous, etc., etc. Now, normally in here, if I went up to $500 here, I probably wouldn't put another $500 here, because I think I've got it covered here. But again, part of what you want to do is if you have a client ask you, well, what is this? Then you need to have a little, and I know I talk too much. I know you guys laugh at me all the time. You know, a 30-second answer takes 30 minutes. But part of that is because people want to know. You guys are tired of listening to me. But I can guarantee you, if a seller asks me a question about what that is and I give them the short 5-second answer and they're not satisfied, what happened? I lost them. Because they think I tap danced away from it. So that's one reason, to be honest with you, why I give too long of answers, because I want to make sure you get it. And quite honestly, Uncle Muhammad over there is a little slow. So we're gonna go through it again.
Difficult and
He's
slow.
the difficult guy. Right? So at any rate, make sure you understand that. So in this particular case, I don't know, maybe I'll put another $150. But again, and the client's freaking out. I don't get it, why? First of all, these are not my fees. These are fees that your lenders may or may not charge. If they charge less, I can come back and adjust these fees down, or if I don't, it's just that much more money in your pocket. So if I overshot it by $300, then down here, you're gonna get $300 more. Got it? Got it. And again, 99.9% of the time they'll understand that. Okay, escrow and title charges. Okay, who understands how to calculate an escrow fee?
For summer, it's easy.
For Summer, it's easy. How does Summer charge your escrow fees?
300 base, and then
$300 base fee plus
$3 per thousand.
$3 per thousand. So we're gonna take 250 times $3, which by my math is $750 plus $300 base. So the escrow fee, if you were to use Town and Country escrow on a sale, which by the way, the per thousand, I glossed over that. The per thousand is per $1,000 of the sales price. We have a $250,000 sales price. So it's $3 per thousand. We have 250 times 3, that's $750. With a base of 300, add that on to the 750. So Summer's escrow fee for this particular transaction would be $1,050. Okay? Now, is that the entire escrow fee? No. That is whose portion of the escrow fee? Seller's portion, which implies that there is also a buyer's portion, which is normally equal to the seller's portion. So if you, how much money does escrow make on these deals? Well, if you see this on the seller's side, you're going to see another amount on the buyer's side. So the base escrow fee for a $250,000 transaction is about $2,100. Okay? So, and which by the way, that may or may not be competitive. On occasion, we have agents in our own office that say, that's absurd. I want to go to the ABC Escrow Company. No, it's called ABC Escrow. Well, you know what? You're right. ABC Escrow Company charges a $300 base and $2.75 per thousand, and you calculate that out and they would be $175 less. If that's a deal killer, then maybe we go use ABC Escrow, or maybe they're more. But that's that formula that Drew just gave you is basically the formula that all escrow companies use. The numbers may be a little different. The base may be higher, the base may be lower, the per thousand may be higher, may be lower. But normally all of them do that. They have a base and they have a per thousand, $3 per thousand, $4 per thousand. Okay? And quite honestly, the higher the sales price, sometimes the formula changes. If you're dealing with a $2.5 million sale, it wouldn't necessarily be a $300 base. It could be a zero base and $2 per thousand. Okay? Which would mean it's still a big dollar amount, but it's not the same as the $300 base with $3 per thousand. So, this is the deal. Whoever your escrow company is, you need to know what their formula is. And you need to know how to do the math. By the way, the math in real estate is pretty simple. Plus, minus, percent key, the occasional divide key, and the equals button. Okay, it's not trigonometry. So there's that. Title insurance fee. Now, I don't have, does anybody have a rate card with them?
Nope.
Look, I don't have a rate card with me, but I've been doing this for 27, 28 years now. I have no idea what the title fee is. I go to my book. Anybody know Summers Extension?
251.
Now, this is unacceptable, because you need to be prepared for this. But you all, in your briefcase, or maybe we can find it online.
That's for the Summer.
Never mind, Summer.
Okay.
Summer has a little book, which your title officer will give to you. You just put it in your briefcase, and what you do is you open it up, and it's probably online, So let's see if we can find it really quick. We wanna do
First
Title.
American.
title fees, First American. Title, First American title rate. Let's see what we got here. Oh, there's a calculator right there, maybe we want that. Okay, so, now again, I don't like, even though everything's on the internet, and maybe this is better than carrying around a little book, but there's a nice little book. So we go to state of, everybody wanna guess, by the way, what this is gonna be on a $250,000 property?
Escrow fee?
Yeah, no, title,
$1,300.
okay? So we got that, we got today's date, purpose matters, this is a, cash sale, $250. We don't have a file number, and go. Please select a valid option, what did I miss? Oh, title rates, how about title rates? Da-da-da-da-da. You're probably close, it's probably gonna be about $1,300. Okay, don't hold us to it.
Mm.
And the winner is... $964. Now, if you had your little book with
For the
you,
basic.
oh, that's big, well, let's not confuse it,
Mhm.
okay? If you had your little book with you, it's very simple. You go down the chart, you find 250, and it says this is what the rates are and all the rest of that sort of stuff, you find that. Now, back here, I pulled up the purchase contract for a purpose. Full screen. Residential purchase agreement. This fee on the net sheet that we're just doing, everything, not everything, yes, everything ties back to the purchase agreement. So, page 2, paragraph 4, escrow and title, seller shall pay escrow fee, yada, yada, yada. Excuse me. Seller shall pay owner's title insurance policy, yada, yada, yada. That's what that is. There was another piece on this that talks about what the buyer's piece is. And normally the buyer's piece is approximately about 50% of what the seller's piece would be. So if I was estimating this and I didn't have my rate chart, and it said that the seller's piece was $975, and we also agreed to pay the buyer's piece, I would probably add about another $450 to that.
But if it's cash.
Go back to the title screen.
If it's cash, there is no lender,
Mhm.
therefore there is no lender to insure, so you wouldn't have the buyer's side.
Go back to that fee schedule thing, because it had that under the buyer's charge, and the seller's charge is 0. Did we check a box wrong or something?
I don't know, we might have. Oh, you got the buyer's total?
But there's no seller's total.
Get the chart,
Yeah.
get the chart, okay? Very, very simple thing to carry around with it. And again, just make it part of your presentation. Now again, but that begs the question, what is title insurance? I don't understand, would you please explain to me title insurance? Why do I have to pay $1,000? I don't get it, how come somebody else doesn't pay for it? Title, give it to me.
It's very, very important.
Good
Because-
answer, give me more.
Well, it makes sure that you are who you say you are, for one, and you're not some imposter selling somebody else's house.
Yep.
It makes sure that no one else does the same thing to you.
Yep.
They can't, try and sell your house and try and pretend that they're you.
Yep.
On the buyer side, it works the same way. They ask for like the last known 5 addresses and all the jobs. They want to make sure you are who you say you are. You are in fact this person, so that there's no confusion. No confusion between you and some other John Smith up there that you have. That's a very common name. Your name is so common, we need to make sure that you are the same John Smith that is the only one that's going to be on title for this house.
And the title is free and clear.
And it's free and clear. Because title insurance is exactly what it says. It is insuring the title to the property. And if for some reason there is a cloud on title and title missed it, they're going to have to pay for it. So let's use our Uncle John up here with this $10,000. They want to make sure that this $10,000 is cleared up properly and that Uncle John's been taken care of properly, because if it's not, and we sell the house to Oscar, and that boils up at a later date, Oscar's gonna say, I got a title policy that says, when I got this house, it was free and clear. I didn't assume any $10,000, or I sure as hell wanted nothing to do with this solar stuff, okay? So title, the whole purpose of title is to make sure that that stuff is cleared up. And it's not just title on property, it could be, I had this happen to my brother. He sold his house, actually I sold my mom and dad's house, which he happened to be occupying at the time, and he actually owned it, obviously. But at any rate, we're getting ready to close escrow. Title comes down and says, timeout,
Child support lien.
child support lien. You're not closing escrow till you get this straightened out.
How did you know that, dude?
She's
You
been
heard that
asked
story before?
No, I know it happens.
It happens all the time.
Actually, I had an HOA lien on the seller. I was selling one property, he had an HOA lien on him personally
Yep.
for a totally different property.
Right. And keep in mind, even the child support lien, that was not a lien on the property, that was a lien on the
Personal.
individual. And I gotta tell you, they don't fool around with child support. Child support, spousal support. Don't mess with that. State of California, that, I mean,
Don't ever
maybe
get
you
married.
guys have some experience with that. Don't screw around with that. They'll ruin
You
your
don't have
life.
to get
Don't ever
married
get
to
married.
have
a baby.
Yeah.
That's right. So, at any rate, that stuff has to be taken care of, and that's what title insurance is doing. It's ensuring that
There you
at the
go.
close of escrow, title can properly be conveyed with no encumbrances to Oscar that he wasn't already agreeing to. And the only ones that he would agree to would be like city and state taxes that go on there, easements, homeowners association restrictions. See, so that's what you're gonna agree to. You sure as heck are not gonna agree to B of A and Chase and solar liens and all of it, and child support liens of the past. Keep in mind, those child support liens don't go on title, but they will hold up your, which is, again, we have 10 sellers here. Let's pick on Mom.
I said, you know Mohammed's got
So,
an issue.
Mohammed has an issue. Okay, well, let's, and by the way, we joke
Okay,
about
for
it,
his
but people
children.
don't, most, you gotta remember, most of the time when you're in these appointments, you don't know these people. And you're asking them some secret details that they don't necessarily wanna share. So you gotta ask the questions and make sure you get the right answers. Okay, drawing, notary, and recording fees. A drawing fee is sometimes also referred to as a document fee or a doc fee, and all that means it's a typing fee. So escrow is going to charge you money to type a grant deed, type a release, type a reconveyance, type or whatever. So, and they charge you for that. Wait a minute, Lance, I thought I was paying $1,050. That's the base. You know, we've got a transaction going on right now with 5 sellers in Redlands. There's a lot of extra stuff that needs to be done. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be drawn up, okay? There will be some fees associated with that. Whether it's $5 a document or $50 a document, or whether we just throw it in for free because we're nice people, but you could have drawing fees. Notaries charge money, okay? And it's not just the notary, because William just laughed. I think the fees are still restricted to $10 per signature. You know, notary?
No, that's right.
I'm
$10 a
not, but I
signature.
do believe that's
Okay, the
right.
fees are restricted by law. The notary cannot charge more than $10
$10
per signature. However,
Mobile.
that's right, man. No one's gonna get $10 for you. You kidding me? Well, geez, I gotta go drive to find Muhammad. Okay, well, maybe
They're hopping on an airplane.
it's gonna be $100. It could be $200. Or special appointment. You know, I had to come in on a Sunday afternoon, even though it was at my office. Hey, but I don't normally do this on Sunday afternoon. I'm gonna charge you extra, okay? I charge you $10 for your signature, but I'm gonna charge you $100 because I had to drive to San Diego to get you, okay? So, you've got that, and recording fees. Yes, folks, people are constantly in your pocket when it comes to sell. The recording fees are what? Recording fees get paid to the county recorder's office, and everything that gets recorded has a fee. So in this particular case, the main thing that the seller is going to have is they're going to have a grant deed that goes between buyer and seller, so that has to be recorded. What else has to be recorded? Which is one reason why they're charging $500 or $150, because all these reconveyances have to be recorded. That costs money. So when you say, what the hell is the bank charging me? Well, they do have some costs. Okay, are they going to absorb it? No. I just switched banks back to Wells Fargo. Did everybody bank at Wells Fargo?
Oh, here we
I
go.
canceled them.
Do you know that when you use an ATM machine,
They charge
your Wells Fargo card, you go to the non-Wells Fargo bank, then say, hey, you wanna use my machine, it costs you $2. Okay, so you get $100 out and the ATM charges you 102.
Wells Fargo charges.
Wells Fargo
I told you
charges you
that,
3
remember?
on top of
For
that?
using
Yeah.
it, yeah.
Did you know that?
It's for. It seems like it's only for Chase ATMs.
Well, I don't know what it is, but I just found
Yeah.
out about it. I'm not happy.
No.
Who am I gonna talk to about that? You can help me with that, Cheryl?
Sure sounds like me.
Okay, so anyway, so we got recording fees. So again, it's hard to know exactly what is gonna need to be drawn, what is gonna need to be notarized, what is gonna need to be recorded. So what do? I inflate, I pad. So, and again, sometimes I base it upon the number of loans. Sometimes I'll base it upon the fact that we have 10 sellers. Lots of things need to be recorded, lots of things might need to be drawn. So I might put anywhere from $100 to $400 or $500 on this one. Now again, Ms. Lance, help me out here, you're guessing. Some of these fees are somewhat subjective, okay? So whenever you're kind of being subjective, go high. Okay, and tell your client, hey, I went high on that. It should pop $300, I'm confused. Again, I don't know, we got X factor over here, we got other things, and normally these are $10, $15, $20 a piece. Okay.
I always tell them that I prefer to go high because that'll end up putting more money in their pocket at
Right.
the end of the deal.
Great, love it, great answer. By the way, I was just about ready to skip this. What's the exchange fees? Anybody? By the way, in case you haven't figured, I don't have any gift cards today.
Oh, well, let's go.
Class is over.
What's an exchange fee? This might be a question on the test. Okay, 1031. That's the number,
Oh,
1031,
yeah.
tax deferred exchange. It's IRS code that says if you exchange like-kind property, a rental property for a rental property, you can defer the tax and yada yada yada. We do a whole class on it, which I haven't done in a long time. We're going to do one. If this property was a 1031 exchange, you're still our buyer. You guys are the seller. You have a rental property. You're going to sell this rental property, and you guys want to buy another rental property. We're selling this to Oscar. It doesn't matter whether Oscar is moving in or not. Okay? This has to do with the seller. You're going to do an exchange. Robin says yes, we're going to exchange. Aha. Okay, we need to let escrow know that. We're going to check the box. I'm going to call my exchange company and say, how much do you, by the way, this is also called an accommodator. How much do you charge to accommodate escrow funds on a 1031 exchange? And they'll say, we charge $1,000. Okay? It's a hell of a business to be in, because this is how this works. You guys, by the way, all the money that you're getting down here, if you want to do a true 1031 exchange and you don't want to pay any taxes on this, you don't get to touch it. Nobody touches it. So what happens is we close escrow,
That goes there.
the money goes into, you close escrow with Summer. Summer gets how much? $1,050. At close of escrow, Summer takes your money down at the bottom, sends it over to Safe Harbor Exchange or an exchange company. They say, okay, great, give me $1,000. They take your money and it just sits there. It just, what a great business, man. They don't do anything with it.
They
It
get the
just,
interest, don't they?
it just sits there. Probably, who knows?
I don't think so.
It sits,
Mhm.
it sits there. Then I saw you guys at another house. You open it up with Summer. Summer says, hey, send it back. They wire it back in.
And you pay
They
for
charge
those
you
wires.
again?
Yeah. Sweet. Gosh, we need to go into that business.
No shit.
Great business. Okay, so those are our escrow fees. All right, so how many do you want at a time? Not perfect. All right, we're actually ahead of schedule. Okay, so now let's get into the other expenses. Now, we already put half of our commission in. I remember earlier I said, hey, I was a strong agent, and I put my 3% in. Let's just, and by the way, this is not a negotiation class on how to negotiate commissions. Having said that, this very well may be where the topic comes up. This is one reason why I like my net sheets pre-done. Maybe I do 3 or 4 of them at 3 or 4 different prices, okay? And I think I'm gonna go 250, but let me work one up at 240, let me work one up at 260, and let me work a few up, and then depending upon where the negotiations are, I reach into my briefcase, I just so happen to have pulled one out for $250,000, and all this is already filled out, okay? So instead of me going through line by line, taking an hour and a half to explain this to you, if you were my sellers, this would all be filled out already. I would not really want to do it on my laptop in front of you, because it takes too much time. Not that it takes a lot of time. Like, we literally could do this whole thing in probably 4 or 5 minutes. But explaining it takes an hour and 15 minutes. So this is already filled out. So I'm going through, only thing I've got to fill in is, which is why it's nice to do this by hand, only thing I got to fill in is loan amounts and such. So I go through, you're going to have escrow, you're going to have title, you're going to have exchange, you're going to have this, that, and the other thing. And then this is how I normally approach it. And of course, it's always the most difficult because it's the largest fee on the net sheet, but the commissions are 3% to the listing office, 3% to the selling office, and then I immediately go down to the next one, and I don't say a frickin' word. If they don't stop me, I'm almost home free. Sometimes I'm completely home free. Sometimes it's just like, sometimes they give you the body language, no shit, they're gonna come back, it's gonna come back. And then sometimes I'll say, oh, well, let's just stop right there, okay? We talk about negotiating commissions in the listing presentation class. That is not this class, so we'll talk about that later. But for now, let's just assume we got 3% and 3%. I do like this net sheet because it does basically kind of break out, hey, I'm not getting the whole 15 grand. Some of it's going to the selling office, and it doesn't break out broker, owner, global banker, franchise fees. It'd be kind of nice if it did. So then you had, hey, by the way, my broker gets this, and global banker gets that. And by the way, if you really wanted to know how much I was going to get, I'm getting $4,500. It does put the thing in perspective a little bit for the sellers. Shit, I thought you were getting 15 grand. You're only getting 4,500. Wow. You need to negotiate a better split.
You need another broker.
Hey! All right. Okay, so we got our commissions in there. We're just gonna blow right by that one. Okay, we got our commissions in there. County transfer tax. County transfer tax is on the RPA. It's completely negotiable between buyer and seller.
1/10 per thousand.
It is 110 cents per
I was gonna
thousand.
say,
If we
let
go
a-
back to our
An
RPA.
almost newly licensed person answer that.
We go back to our
That's on the
RPA.
test.
Transfer tax.
I think it is.
Bottom
I
of
don't
page
think so.
2.
It varies by county.
Seller shall pay county transfer tax.
Right.
Okay? If it says on page 2, seller should pay county transfer tax, and the seller's paying county transfer tax. Having said that, in Southern California, almost all of the contracts are written with the seller paying county transfer tax. Just be careful if you're selling a Fannie or a Freddie or an REO, because they like to push that stuff back on you. And Drew is correct. It is based county per county. Riverside County is how much?
110.
$1.10. So you put in $1.10. You hit the tab button. It takes $250 per thousand, $250,000 sales price. 250 times $1.10 is $275. If you're selling in a different county and it's a higher percentage, you need to know that. Okay. The city transfer. We are currently in the city of Moreno Valley. Today, city of Moreno Valley does not have a city transfer fee.
Riverside does.
Riverside does, and Riverside's is
$1.10.
$1.10 per thousand. So Riverside will get an additional $275.
These properties in Riverside?
No, I don't know where this property's at, but if we were in Riverside, that's what it'd be. If it was in Los Angeles, somebody told me LA's is like $3, $5?
530, I think it was.
Okay, well, I don't know, but I'll take your word for it. If I, oops,
Somebody had said 440.
if I was in the
440,
city,
something like that. Okay,
I don't know.
440.
I don't know.
okay, well, this is it.
Looking up.
Okay, now on these, we don't guess. I have no problem with you guessing on dock fees because we don't know. This is a knowable number.
Right. And you
If
can
I'm
Google
going
it.
on a listing presentation in the city of LA, and it's the first house I've ever sold in the city of LA, I'm gonna do some research. And I could probably, I mean, can't we just do everything on Google today?
Yeah.
You go in there, LA County transfer tax, or LA City transfer tax, probably take it to the city website and it'll tell you what it is. We're professionals, you don't guess. God forbid you come in and you put something in and the client says,
Where'd you get that?
where'd you get that? It changed, it used to be that 3 years ago, but it's now whatever. right? Done.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, I don't care how good you are, I think I'm pretty good. I've made basic, for lack of a better word, casual, careless mistakes that have cost me transactions. Because I just was careless, okay? And everything else was perfect, but that one thing, man, you blew it. Okay, homeowners dues, we already covered the property taxes. Okay, so let's go back. We kind of already did our prorations with these other things. We've got property taxes. Now this begs the question that we were talking about earlier. Have these been paid or not?
It's
Okay.
it's $1.10
For the city?
in county,
Really?
LA County, and then the
Well, that's
city.
the county, the city's what we were looking at. While you're working on that, let me finish this explanation. We talked about earlier, were these things paid or not? Now this is where we need to determine have the taxes been paid. If the taxes have not been paid, we need to charge days in here. If the taxes have already been paid, we need to credit days over here. Same thing with the association. So I think we said all of the taxes have been paid, including the April 10th installment,
$4.50.
which is $4.50 city.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so again, if this was LA,
So by saying 440, I could have
$4.50.
just lost the listing.
could be. Could be. I told this story in a different class. It was a listing presentation class. I lost a listing, I don't know, 10 years ago because I was careless on a CMA and I included a couple of comps that were on the west side of Kitching. This property is on the east side of Kitching, below JFK on San Lupe. And I included comps on the west side of Kitching, which is on the west side of the drainage ditch, which is in Warner Ranch, which is the 1950 old cruddy houses. And the thing was perfect. And my seller noticed that there were some comps on Juanita and Gentian in there. And I discounted them. They weren't part of my thinking. And I wasn't using them as comps to set value, but they were on my paperwork. And the seller didn't list with me, and I called him back, and I'm like, Oscar, man, I thought we were like ready to go. And this was over the phone, over the email listing. I never got a chance to sit down. He said, yeah, Lance, I thought so too. And I looked at that CMA, and obviously you don't know the area very well because you had houses on Juanita and Jensen. Are you kidding me? Never even gave me, now if I had been sitting in the kitchen with him, maybe I could have overcome that. But in this particular case, he got it in the mail, and he said, Lance doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Actually, Drew's the one who pulled up the CMA.
Hey, that was when I did CMA's your way, giving him 75 different properties.
Okay.
I give him four.
So,
he does,
all right, I had to go
he
down
gives you a
there.
CMA 400 pages. 75. He'll give you, your house
All
in Sunny
right,
Ranch. He'll
all right,
send you
all
properties
right.
in Orange Crest.
Okay, we're gonna do Now, I've been told and I verified you have paid your taxes through the end of the year. We're gonna close June 25th, so they're not gonna get charged. It won't be an expense. There will be a credit. How many days? We already did this before.
185.
185. Now, this one's a lot easier to get back. They'll all be handled through escrow. It'll be prorated accordingly. So in that case, we just added $1,480 to the bottom line. You're going to get that back in the form of a credit for prepaid property taxes. Buyer's closing costs. Now again, we said we were into this as a cash deal. Generally speaking, when you're doing a cash deal, you don't have buyer's closing costs. But if closing costs were negotiated as part of the offer, and if the seller agreed to pay something in buyer's closing costs, this is where it would go. Now again, we said we were doing cash. Having said this, Drew has seen 1,000 offers, and not kidding, at least 500 offers, where you have a cash buyer saying, oh, by the way, please credit me back $2,000 for my closing costs. What? How about we just reduce the price $2,000? Instead of offering me $250, offer me $248, make it clean.
Doesn't look as good on paper.
Right, because you know what? Because, and all kidding aside, we don't write clean offers as an industry. We write crap offers. The buyer thinks he's getting something by asking for $2,000. on a cash deal, it's the stupidest thing in the world, I don't get it. And by the way, if your buyer doesn't need closing costs, don't ask for them. If they don't need it, but they think, well, geez, I think I could get, see, I'm hearing that sellers are paying closing costs, and it'd be about $4,000 or $5,000, fine. Let's bring the offer price down $4,000 or $5,000 and not ask for anything. Keep it clean. Okay, so buyer's closing costs, we're gonna say it's cash, so we got nothing. Natural hazard disclosure reports. Natural hazard disclosure reports run between 50 and 125 bucks. I'll put $100 in here, that'd be natural, disclosure source or whatever. By the way, this, going back to our RPA, if you were gonna have buyer's closing costs, normally it would be probably here, it would say buyer to, or seller to credit buyer $5,000, that's where we would put it. The natural hazard is here. Seller shall pay natural hazard disclosure report prepared by ABC company. Okay? So that's where the reference back is to the contract. So we put $100 in there for that. With destroying pests and other inspection fees. Now, depending upon who you're using, some termite companies charge nothing for a termite inspection, but generally somewhere between $50 and $100 is normal. So I would now if I know I'm using Canyon, is Canyon still free on a purchase?
No.
Okay, well, what's he charge now? $50?
Yeah, it's like, I think 50, 75 bucks.
Okay, well, whatever, if it's my company and I'm gonna recommend them, I'm gonna put in 75
I don't think
bucks.
he knows who I am.
However, this does not include correction work. Correction work is here. Now, if I'm on a listing appointment, we do this in the listing class, I'll say, okay, great, I want you to give me 75 bucks now, I'm gonna order the termite guy tomorrow, and by Monday, we're gonna know what we have, because right now, I don't know. Okay? Matter of fact, we just ran into that right now. We've got a listing, we sold it super, super quick, but we took a listing up in Sunnybeam Ranch that we should have ordered a termite report on 3 or 4 weeks ago. We didn't. Now we're in escrow and we're waiting to start the negotiations because we know there's going to be a problem. So we know better than that. And when I say we, I'm talking about Drew and I. We know. I mean, why did we not do that? And we're going to work it out, but we had an unknown on our next sheet. So again, you put in the hard number, 3/4.
Big unknown.
Hmm?
It's big. I just got the report.
Well, there you go. It's big. It's a problem. It's dependent upon how big and how much. But let's just pretend we know we got a real number and it's 1,500 bucks. Home warranty. I'm not going to go back to the offer. Bottom of page 2. Seller agrees to pay home warranty, 450 bucks or whatever it happens to be. You plug it in. Pretty straightforward. Rents and security deposit. If the property is a rental where the seller has received rent and is holding a deposit, this would go here. I gave you an example earlier that we're doing a 1031 exchange. Probably pretty good that it is a rental. I will actually go back to the contract and show you where this is outlined. If you go back to the RPA, and if the seller is selling a property that is, the seller is selling a property that is tenant occupied, it says it's tenant occupied, it says when they're going to move out, and then it talks about prorations. It talks about proration of property taxes and other items on page 5, paragraph 17, and this talks about rents and deposits. So this is how this would work. We go back to our proceeds. And we've said this is a rental. You guys are selling your rental, so it's very simple. How much is the rent?
1,000.
$1,000 a month. Now again, today is May 22nd. We're going to close June 25th. Correct? Correct. Okay. The buyer, does your buyer pay your rent on time normally? Do you expect them to pay the rent on time in June? Are we going to sell this property to another investor? So those are the givens. The tenant pays us June rent. That pays for what?
June.
The entire month of June. We're closing on June 25th, correct? How many days rent do we credit back to the buyer? 5 days. So you take $1,000, divide it by 30 days, that's $33.33, multiplied by 5, and that's going to be about, what, 165 bucks? Whatever the math is. Huh?
Plus the security.
Haven't got there yet. So we got about $165, which represents 5 days rent, but we also have the deposit. How much deposit has the tenant given you?
More likely 1,000.
Another 1,000. You have the money? Sure. Now the new buyer needs to get that. So the buyer will be credited $1,165. That assumes we close on June 25th. If we close earlier or later, that number changes. The buyer will be credited, and this is now a cost, which comes off of your sheet. But the $1,000 that you have set aside in your trust account for the tenant's deposit is now yours. Now, utilize that. If you're selling rental properties, I gotta tell you, I know better. I just told you about my termite. I've been doing this a long time. I know better than to not order the termite in a timely fashion. I just did one. I can blame it on Drew all I want, but that's all me. It should have been ordered. I know better than to forget about this. It seems like every 2 or 3 years I sell a rental and I don't get that base covered. And guess who ends up paying for that? Comes out of my $7,500. So yeah, it's a bitch. FHA, VA. I don't like this. I wish they just took this off. This needs to be updated. But if you're paying points and fees, as an industry, at least in Southern California, thank God we've stopped using words like discount points and fees. When I was first got into the business, boy, man, every point, 2 points and 1 origination and blah, 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 blah. Now we're normally just dealing with hard cost. How much do you want in closing costs? $5 grand, $2 grand, $1,500. So normally this is going to be blank. Even if you're doing an FHA or VA deal. Even if you were doing an FHA or VA deal, I wouldn't put points here, which by the way, a point would be what?
1%
Of?
the purchase price.
Sale price.
I'm still waiting.
Loan amount.
Whose loan amount?
Buyers.
Buyers. Cheryl's cheating.
I'm sorry, yes, I can't sit here and be quiet.
No. 1% of the buyer's loan amount. So we would have to know what the buyer's gonna, we're selling for $250, the buyer's getting a loan for $200. 1 point would be $2,000.
It doesn't have to be a point. I had one just recently, it was an 1/8.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily a point.
Right.
It's-
Could be half a point, could be 1/8 of a point, could be 4 points, could be whatever. I'd stay away from points. Don't use that language. Just find out, Cheryl, how much money do we need to get the buyer credited from the seller in order to make this deal happen? She's gonna say, I need
That's not.
$2,500. What does that mean? Well, there's a point, there's origination, there's some costs, there's, how much again? $2,500. Write the offer, seller to pay buyer, credit buyer $2,500 towards allowable, non-allowable fees to be used by Coldwell Banker Mortgage to assist the buyer in paying funds, whatever. Okay? Stay away from this. HOA transfer fee, move-in, move-out fees. HOAs charge transfer fees. They charge doc prep fees. You need to find out what it is. Do you guys know? Normally you don't. Well, you got to get hold of the HOA. Sometimes it's $200, sometimes it's $250, sometimes it's $100, sometimes it's more. Okay. HOA collection fees. We assumed that we had a problem, but this is a good place for junk. Okay. And I mean junk in the most endearing way possible.
Oh, I thought you meant all the junk in me behind.
Could be. Could be. Trash removal. 20, we've got a house right now we're trying to sell. It's got $5,000 trash out. Okay. Removing dead tree from backyard, roof certification, cleaning the swimming pool, hauling the whatever, you know, whatever miscellaneous fees you have, unknown.
No.
We could call this the Muhammad
Perfect.
uncertainty charge. Oh,
Except for
crazy Uncle Muhammad, unknown charges, you know, whatever it happens to be. I'm not joking. We've got a transaction in. I'm using Muhammad kind of as the butt of our joke here, but there's a live transaction going on in Redlands right now, and there is I think there's 4 or 5 sellers, and one of them, from what I understand, is just nuts. Not nuts, but just difficult. And the proceeds are supposed to be split 4 or 5 ways between the siblings, and the price is this, and it's $1 million, $2 million sale, and this guy wants like, everyone's agreed like on a $1.2 million, he wants 1.25. 3. He wants like an extra 30 grand. His piece of the 30 grand would be the equivalent to 1/4 of that. So he's talking about, you know, $7,000-8,000 for his piece. Well, the siblings are saying, let's just sell it for that. We'll take his extra $7,000 and we're going to split it between the 3 of us just to make him go away. So you could have that. You could have the crazy uncle $7,000 thing on here, whatever. So all that stuff's on there. Okay, so we're pretty close. We're pretty close to done here. So they give you a couple lines to put in your miscellaneous. So let's just review real quick. Let's go back up to the top and we're going to go to the right side. So we've got our date, we've got our price, we've got our prorated interest for the first and the second. We've got our demand and recon fees, our escrow and our exchange fee, our title, our notary fees. We've got our commissions covered, county and city transfer tax, property. Oh, did we do our property? Oh, we did. We got our property. Where'd it go? Oh, we got our property tax credit over here. If it was an expense, it would be here. Our HOA expenses, because apparently we decided you guys weren't going to pay that one for some stupid reason. Closing costs, natural hazard, wood destroying pest, the termite corrective work, home warranty, rents, blah, 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 and our junk fee of $3,500. Okay, so we got,
It's gonna cost me almost 30 grand to sell my house?
yes. I do. Yeah, and you get
I
that.
hate it when the sellers say that.
Yeah, you do. But one thing you gotta keep in mind with those, yes, it's gonna cost you 30 grand, but, you know, I'm sorry that you live in the city of LA, and, you know, I'm sorry you haven't paid your HOAs, and I'm sorry that your house has got bugs, and I'm sorry that you rented it out, and I'm sorry that you've got the crazy uncle. So you've got almost 7, 8, 9, 8,000 of this 30 grand, which is, well, look at me. I mean, it's what it is. Now, again, do you want to argue over commissions? Again, we'll do this in the listing class, but since we're doing good, we will be literally out of here at 3, maybe even a little earlier. Since you're talking commissions, a couple things. Before you have any negotiation with commission, you have to have a floor in your mind before you go on the listing appointment. So, I set this listing appointment with you guys collectively. I know I'm coming to your house today at 1 o'clock. I'm thinking I'm looking at about a $250,000 sales price. I'm also thinking I have 8 or 9 sellers. Which, keep in mind, does that weigh in my mind? Damn straight it does. I'm much less inclined to negotiate a fee when I got to deal with a family of 8 people. But let's pretend we didn't. We got 1 seller. And I need to sit back and say, I have a business plan. I have a business plan. I know what I'm trying to make. I know the clients I want to work with. I know what I need to do goal-wise. And part of that plan says my average commission needs to be X amount of bucks. And maybe this falls above it. Maybe it falls below it. But I know no matter what, if I go into this transaction, I'm going to try to get a 6% commission. But I will not take anything less than whatever that may be. Let's just say it's 5 for argument's sake. So knowing that, I'm going to ask for 6, and I'm telling you guys, the vast majority, I have a slide, I don't have it readily accessible, otherwise I would pull it up. And this was a survey that was done by, I think it was National Association of Realtors. And it was asking people that recently sold their house. I don't remember exactly how the question went, but it was something to the effect that, what commission did you pay? How did you arrive at that number? And, you know, so on and so forth. And a huge percentage, it was like 70% of the people that paid a less than 6% commission, when asked how they arrived at the 5% commission, the answer was, the agent volunteered it.
Really?
Really. And I'm not surprised by that at all, by the way. As opposed to, we negotiated it and I asked for a 5% commission. So in other words, the agent volunteered. We get this all the time. Hey, you know, normally 6%, but I'm weak. I'll do it for 5. Or you've told me you're going to interview 3 other agents. Oh boy. I'll do it for 5. Or how's this one? I'll do it for 6, but if I sell it myself, I'll do it for 5. Which is basically saying you'll do it for 5. Okay? don't approach those conversations if you can avoid them. Now, having said that, I just did, but, Drew's ready to slap me.
I wasn't in the
I'll
room, but
list it for 6, if I sell it myself, I'll do it for 5. What is the chances of you guys double ending most of your stuff? It's not that great. Now, we've been on a little bit of a run lately where we have been double ending our stuff. The listing where I did use that line, I'll list it for 6, if I sell it myself, I'll do it for 5. The listing is taken at 6. And the chances are pretty damn good it's going to be sold by somebody else, which means what? We're selling it for 6. But when you say, hey, I'll list it for 6, but if I sell it myself, I'll do it for 5, then the next thing you know, the seller starts talking to you about it, and they go, oh, okay, I'll do it for 5. From the beginning.
And if
Okay.
it's Jacqueline, she'll say no, 3.
Right. So at any rate, but whatever you do, know what your floor is. So if you do get beaten up a little bit and you're down at a 5% commission, then when they start grounding you at 4.5, then I'm sorry, I can't. I won't. I could, but I won't. I have a business, I'm a professional. Blah, 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 blah. So we'll talk a lot more about in this new class. Okay, so we've got all of our costs, we've got them added up. Let's just go back and review the right side real quick. We've got our $250,000 sales price, we've got our HOA dues, which by the way, I don't know why that seems like it's a stupid place for that to be. It just needs to be somewhere else on the form. We've got all of our loans. We're gonna get our credit for our taxes. We're gonna, so now we get to add everything up. This is our price, these are what we owe in loans, these are our expenses, we get a credit, this is a plus, we add that back. So basically, we've got $46,477,000. You would put in here, in the event the seller is going to do a carryback, you would put that in there. Pretty rare.
What is that?
So that would be if the buyer, in the negotiations, the buyer said, will you guys please carry back a $10,000 second trust deed for us? Part of the financing. In other words, you guys as the seller would be financing $10,000 of the buyer's purchase price, which by the way, if you're gonna do that, you better talk to your lender first. Seller carrybacks on traditional finance loans don't always, okay,
Raises the total combined loan to value.
right. Changes a lot of stuff. Normally seller carrybacks are done on deals other than traditional finance type transactions. But if you did it, it would go here, a $10,000 seller carryback, that's gonna subtract 10 from that, that gets us to 46. But then you also have the federal withholding. Federal withholding is what?
Your
3
3%.
3 1/3%. Let's pull it up. Matter of fact, I lost a deal because of this. I lost a deal because of this. Because a guy I thought was a citizen turned out not to be. This is the FERPTA form, by the way. So let's first pull it up here. It says tax withholding, is that what I'm looking for?
Yeah.
Who's got it memorized? Where's it at?
Drew does.
Tax withholding. Tax withholding. Within the time specified in 14 grade AA, to avoid required withholding, seller shall deliver to buyer a qualified substitute affidavit to comply with the federal FERPTA, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so let's do the FERPTA form. So let's pull up FERPTA. Oops. Let's stop clicking on that. Where is it? I miss it?
It's not under F, I can tell you, because I looked for the
I
first
thought I just
one.
looked at it.
There's another name for it.
That's the non-resident alien?
Yeah, it's in it,
Starts with an N?
maybe,
Maybe.
if that's.
There's a
the
gift
name
card.
of
I
it.
got a gift card. Gift
What are you
card.
looking for?
I'm looking for the FERPTA.
Oh, it's
Hold on, let's go back here.
go to alphabetical. It's like non-foreign status.
That's where he's on.
Mhm.
Seller's affidavit of non-foreign status.
So it'd be under F.
Yes.
If you do it in alphabetical,
Yeah, I just didn't. Hold on a second. We were just there. Where's the tax withholding? Tax withholding, FERPTAS,
Or from AS.
AS. AS or QS is a qualified substitute, so
You
AS.
want AS.
Affidavit and non-form status.
Seller's affidavit, there we go. Seller's affidavit, not for sale, AS1.
They should just
Okay.
be
Why is it under
FERPA.
A, right?
It should just be FERPA.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, so here we go.
It
So this
used
is
to
the
be,
dreaded
I
FERPA
think.
I
form.
think it used to
We
be.
talk about the FERPA form in the disclosure class, but we got a few minutes, so let's go through it here real quick. So this is a form that is filled out by you guys, the seller, and it basically says, what are you selling? I'm selling fur. Who am I? I'm John Smith. What's my phone number? Where do I live? Yada, yada, yada. What's my social security number? In order to avoid withholding, IRC section blah, 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 requires that the seller provide this affidavit to the buyer, Oscar, with the seller's taxpayer ID number, or provide the affidavit to a qualified substitute. That's what escrow does. Who furnishes the statement to the buyer, a penalty of perjury, yada. A qualified substitute may be yada, yada, yada. Authority to sign federal law. I, the undersigned, declare under penalty of perjury for the reasons checked below I am exempt. If I cannot check that I'm exempt, then I'm subject to the tax. So, I'm an individual, I am not a resident alien for U.S. tax purposes. I'm a corporation. California law, this is really the one that we're trying to deal with right now. California law, I, the undersigned, declare under penalty of perjury that for the reason checked below, I am exempt. Certifications, what's made? Sales price is less than 100. No. 250. Property qualifies as my principal residence. No, we just said we're selling this as a rental. Property was last used as my principal residence within the 2-year period. No, we've been renting it. Transaction will result in a loss or zero gain California income tax. I don't know that. Even though you're getting $40,000, you have to determine through your CPA, does this mean there's a loss? If there is a loss, then I can check it. And then I got a complete franchise tax board form, send it to the state of California, and let them determine whether I'm exempt. Well, let's just suppose for a moment I'm not. As a result of the sale of the property, seller's tax liability calculated to the minimum tax rate, regardless of seller's actual rate, will be less than 3 1/3%. Withholding otherwise required. Seller will be required to sign certification. So the 3 1/3% rule basically says if you don't meet the requirement, they are going to withhold, escrow is going to withhold 3 1/3%. You can send it to the state of California. So what we got to do, in your guys' case, we're going to plug in
Actually, I'm in the
3 1/3% of 250. Okay, so that's, just call it, whatever, I don't want to do the math, let's just say it's $7,500. Okay? Now, this is not a cost. This is, who's ever had a real job where you got a check on Friday? W-2 employee, okay? Every Friday you get a check, you earned $1,000, but they only gave you $750. Why? Withholding. $250 of your money got sent to the state, got sent to the feds, and you basically prepaid your tax. And then you wait for the year to go by, and you can't wait to file your tax returns because why? You get a refund because the government set it up and you agreed that you're going to give them your extra money for the year, and then we're happy to get a refund at the end of the year, which
And then
is
they'll
bullshit.
tax, and
to be
then
honest
they'll
with you.
tax you on giving you your money that was yours in the first place the next year.
Amen. And Robin's a certified CPA with Ernst & Young. But at any rate, this is the equivalent of what I just described. You are paying them in advance because you may owe them money. So next year when you file your income tax, this is state of California by the way, when you file your income tax in the state of California, they calculate it, your tax professional sends up or does the paperwork and says, oh, you actually only owed $100. You will then get a refund of $7,400. Oh, well, you owed $8,000. Well, you already have $7,500 on credit. They'll send in $500. So in this particular case, assuming we got all the good information from our seller, and assuming we didn't forget something, this particular seller at close of escrow would walk away with about $39,000. The reality is they probably will walk away with over $40,000 because we've got some cushion in here. Now, the whole danger to this thing is we forgot something. Okay, we forgot that the property needed a septic cert. Or we underestimated the termite because we didn't have the report. Or the property is in really, really bad condition and we knew that the buyer was going to ask for additional repairs and we just never, which we should have put, hey, possible buyer requested repairs, $2,000. It's nice when you put that on a net sheet in advance and then when the buyer actually asks for it, it's amazing how it softens the blow. Hey, remember we talked about this, and sure enough, we were right. The buyer is asking for all this nonsense, but guess what? We already got it covered. You don't have it on there, and the seller instantly sees their net just got dropped by $2,000. Okay, and then whatever other little mistakes. We made we miscalculated escrow, we miscalculated title, we made a mistake on whatever. And I'm telling you, whatever you make now. And by the way, even though let's suppose the mistake is made over here, and that's a pretty big difference. Whose fault is that?
Yours.
You told me.
Drew said it was your fault.
You guys told me you owed $100,000 on this house. Now, of course, prior to close of escrow, we got the demand was sent and it came back at 120. Now, having said that, Debbie's probably right. It is my fault because I didn't ask enough questions. I should have insisted on, hey, give me that bank statement. I don't want to find out I got a $20,000 error a week into escrow or a week before close of escrow. I would have rather have found that out within 24 hours, 36 to 48 hours from the time I listed the house. Because then, even though I still would have felt like I wasted a whole bunch of time, now I only would have wasted a couple of days as opposed to maybe a couple of months. Okay, and by the way, that's gonna happen. Yeah, I mean, it's gonna happen. You'll take a listing on a Saturday, you'll be super excited, and you will cancel that listing on a Monday because something like that. Or the seller will cancel. And by the way, sometimes you give them exactly what they want and they'll still cancel. You know, you give them more than what they wanted, you think it's good to go on that cancel. So this is the deal. The math on this is easy because it's done for you in the form. What I would suggest is you guys practice this. You need to be able to fill this out by hand in front of a client while you're at a presentation. And I don't think most of our agents can do that. And it's not the math, by the way. The math on this is easy. This is just plus and minus and basic stuff. It's knowing this and this and this and all the little stuff, which is why real estate's hard, guys. Oh, we make so much money. Yeah, it's such an easy business. Drive around nice cars and everything. You know, this is important stuff. This is, which is again why it just amazes me the level of incompetence by so many people out. And again, I bet 70% is a low number. I bet 80% of the realtors in CRMLS, not only do they not know how to fill this out, they probably don't know 50% of what we discussed in this form. If we literally sat down and said, what's a reconveyance fee? I bet 50% of the agents have, 80% have no idea what that is. Okay, we got a few minutes for questions.